Okay, no, but honestly, thank you, Randall, for this awesome introduction. What he spoke was about many things that we've been doing, actually, how we come out with the streaming idea, and what is the current status of the migravías in the region, right? But apart from that, I'm gonna take that information a little bit further of what we are doing right now, what's coming next, okay? And my talk is focused right now on identifying priority conservation areas for high seas, not for coastal areas, for high seas. And this is a little bit tricky because most of the information that we have so far, actually, it's more related to coastal areas because there's an ease of access to those, right? And also, because there's also a lot of concentration of species in coastal areas more than in the open seas, right? So with that in mind, our work is based on one thing. I really like the slogan of this expedition, actually. Collaboration is key. Because this type of analysis needs a lot of collaboration, needs a lot of people working on together, bringing information that is available, some information that is not available, but make it available so we can use it to create this spatial analysis. And collaboration actually in Migramar started way long ago with these guys. Where is this going? Thank you. Don't go over there. You can see James over there. So circa 2006, actually, there was a lot of things going on after Ecuador, Costa Rica, Colombia decided to create the Eastern Tropical Pacific Marine Corridor. So there was an accord signed by these countries saying, okay, we are gonna recognize there's a marine corridor. But by then nobody knew what was actually a marine corridor and how Galapagos, Malpelos, and Coco were connected. So these guys here, I'm sorry, Sandra, I don't have a picture of Malpelo, but these guys here, in this, Sandrita here, these guys here, after a trip from Malpelo, actually got together and decided, hey guys, we have to do this in a way that we can compare all our results regionally, right? So thank you guys, because you are like the precursors of all of this work that we have done. So after many years of this thingy, okay. So after many years of this effort that they were doing, like a regional effort, we come up with this idea that already Randall explained. I'm not gonna get into that, but the migravías was like the foundation for everything what happened next in the region, because we managed to show that the countries were right in recognizing that there was a connectivity between these islands and also with actually the coastal regions, right? This one, go. No. This one.
No, pero tu mano para atrás.
Okay, go. So, and during these years, somehow, all of these scientists, under the umbrella of Migramar and collaborating with many other people, we sort of influence all of these countries to increase the size of the protection in our national jurisdictions, right? So we are kind of dealing like fivefold, and this is only talking about oceanic areas. If we include, for example, Eduardo's work in coastal Ecuador, Randall's, Elena and Andres' work, what they have been done in coastal Costa Rica as well, Hector, this goes to sixfold. So the impact that we have actually create in the region, it's big, and that's something to be very very proud about it. But there's an issue. There's a catch. The catch is that if this works, I'm going to show you the catch. That we are constrained by the national jurisdictions, and that's an issue because our individuals, they are not staying here. So our individuals, as we know, they move way away. So this is a snapshot of the information that we have currently in the Migramar database about movements of sharks, whales, sea lions, birds, you name it. So there's a lot of, it's probably around 700 yeah, 750 tracks that we have currently in our database. And it shows that, of course, we have, this is an old map, by the way, now. But our efforts here are well based, well supported. But there's a lot of things going on here. For example, Revilla, it's probably well connected with Clipperton. And there's an issue here that we don't have, like currently, the tools to actually to create some kind of management zone to connect these two, to improve the connectivity of these two regions, right?
Oi,
Oi. Don't go. Okay. And this species, you all know, this is not new for you guys, but these species do this because they respond to the complex heterogeneity of the region. So our Eastern tropical Pacific and the rest of the world is not homogeneous. There are areas and patches where they do aggregate more for unknown reasons, but they do so because they are following, most of them actually, the current productivity of the area. So with our work right now, what are we trying to tackle? We are definitely trying to find a way to incorporate these areas beyond national jurisdictions into a management area. And this is right now a critical opportunity because the United Nations they have approved already, have approved already the BB&J Accords, which in the future, in the next following years, it will give us a legal framework to work in management areas offshore beyond our exclusive economic zones. So with that in mind, we are trying to create an analytical framework for the Eastern Tropical Pacific so we are 1 or 2 steps ahead and we can provide the countries, once this is already settled, with enough information so where and how they can move next, what areas they can choose or select for particular management regulations, right? With highly migratory species in mind. Don't go. So, how this is done, there are many ways about special prioritization, marine spatial planning. There are many tools, in the market. We have right now, and we were talking about last night about this one, the ISRAS, you say is the important shark and ray areas that have been, we were working with people from the IUCN, there are the IBAs, which is for birds, the IMAs for marine mammals, etc. There are a lot of tools right now, or a lot of, what's it called, conservation, what's the word, blah, 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 efforts to showcase for certain functional groups areas that are important for them, right? There are the KBAs, there are KE biodiversity areas as well. There is a recognized tool by the UECN saying that this is an important set of criteria to choose or select areas that that will be important for certain species. But they are very strict, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a sec. And there are other tools like MARXAM. There are weighted prioritization analysis, right? And of course, we have to choose one to do this. But the problem is that given that it is me, and I never choose one, so we chose violence. So we chose everything. And right now, what we're doing in our analysis is actually try to compare them all, how or which one of those will actually be particularly interesting for detecting these areas in high seas. Because most of them, is not all of them actually, they have their own constraints about the needs, the criteria they have to fulfill in order to select or identify an area, right? So what we want to do, what we are right now in the first step of our analysis is we started with a weighted prioritization analysis. It means that we are using spatial layers, and we are categorizing them and giving a weight, a value, a score, so we can start actually adding that up and at the end of the analysis show what areas are more important. And this is a little bit subjective because we have to choose as a scientist what could be the criteria that we need to fulfill, right? But also there's an opportunity because most of the analysis that have been done right now they are focused on coastal ecosystems and coastal areas. And by doing this or following this, we can tailor a set of criteria that will more likely reflect what we need in the high ecosystem. We need to identify in the high ecosystem, right? Then what we're doing right now, well, after that is try to compare with KBAs and other tools and say, okay, which one performs best? This is the first step. And then after that, okay, so to show how well this analysis or how well our oceanic ecosystems being depicted, try to assess with current MPAs, right? The big ones, the oceanic ones, to say how much is the coverage, is it working or not working, how much is left, how much have to be done, so we can try to manage an important or a significant portion of these areas identified in high seas. Go. Okay, so where the biological is the tropical Pacific, and we are selecting the biological because it is somehow the limits that we know that these species may prefer, and after that there are different ecosystems that have been identified with the main idea, the overarching goal, as I said before, that we need to provide this framework for the BBNJ Accords, right? So, okay, so for the first step we're doing is compiling a massive amount of layers. We have right now in our database somewhere around 25,000 spatial layers, like shape files, raster files, and so on, that we are processing, analyzing, filtering, some of them one by one, by hand, which is a very daunting task. But we are separating these layers in 4 specific areas that we want to assess. First, we want to assess the biodiversity distribution, right? Then physical habitats, oceanographic processes, and life stages. The idea of selecting this in a different aspect is that we can showcase in a better way aspects of this or the species and the oceanographic setting in high seas, right? Go. So, in terms of biodiversity distribution, no brainer, we have to download everything that is available. What we have so far, it's mostly IUCN data, but sometimes this data is not right, so we have to fix it. We have to undergo a very precise fixing of the geometries that they have, or if those information is not quite right, we are using other sort of information like OBIS, HEBIF, GBIF, IETTC data, just to correct the distribution or replace the distribution, aka let's say Alopias, pelagicus, a treasure shark that has, according to the distribution of the IUCN, is just one huge polygon, and they will just show the huge polygon of the ETP, right, the biological limits. And if we use the information that from a really nice study or monitoring or catch data that will have enough data across the years, we can better show what areas do they prefer and use those as a proxy for their distribution in the region. Yeah, and yes, and also fix the distribution in terms of the vertical distribution. Sorry, the redundancy. And this is shown here. For example, there's some species that, because IUCN decided that it's not nice to show nothing in their maps, they decided to buffer most of the information that they have on reef fish and extra species, whatever it's benthic or demersal. And in their maps they look cool, right? Because they have buffered everything, but that doesn't show the actual distribution of these species. So we are doing right now, what we did actually is just fix those geometries to the vertical distribution of species based on whatever is published, the information that is published by UCN, by FishBase, by whatever literature that we can have, reference that we can get, right? So you can see the difference, how it's at the beginning, how it's at the end, right? This is a better representation of a species, right? And we have done so for 944 shapefiles by hand, one by one. And this is more likely for example, the information about the IETTC, how we are using that to proxy distribution for species that we don't have data, or they just select the whole ETP, right? So we use the information from the IETTC, and out of that we create kernel density estimators and try to see if that actually will reflect the distribution of the species in the region, and use that as a proxy instead of the layer that it's been provided by the IUCN. Once that is done, we are right now tailoring these set criteria to select or to score every single of these species. And there are several criteria that we're using. We're using conservation status because it's a nonsense, right? It's a no-brainer. And trying to categorize whatever species is in a critically endangered status with the highest score possible, right? And then we have also the central distribution, try to also broad the importance of having restricted endemic species in the region more so than the global species. Then to try to take that information into the high seas ecosystems, we are using the vertical distribution and using these categories to select, okay, the pelagic species will have a score of 2 because that's the ones that we are more interested in. Those are our conservation objects in this analysis. Pentopelagic, those species that are actually within the coastal areas and also the pelagic region. And the demersal species, we're giving it 0, so we can delete it from the analysis at once. And well, not at once, but they won't give weight, at least in this region, right? So we have 2 more direct use or direct value in terms of commercial and recreative value, or aka tourism. So as well, we are giving a weight to those as well to see if there's a value for that species in terms of the use that we are giving it. We've been thinking in using other type of ecosystem values, ecosystem services into these analyses, and that's something we want to discuss as well with the scientists in the future meetings that we will have, right? And that's about biodiversity. Oceanographic processes, that's a very interesting as well analysis. This is we are collaborating directly with Pelagius. Thank you, Pelagius. Thank you. You don't know, James, but thank you so much for your help on this. Because by Elka, who's working with James and Pelagius, she has access to all the Copernicus data set because she downloaded everything for her research, for her master's. So she did a really cool analysis in taking everything that is available over there and trying to find out what are the patterns, using climatologies on, for example, pH. What are the areas where are actually more acidic or more, what's it called? Basicas in English? Basics. Yeah. As well in chlorophyll concentration, chlorophyll A concentration, to detect those areas that has an importance as a whaling regions, right? And this is really cool because we have, of course, the Sea of Cortez here, right? But we have the Tehuantepec of whaling process, the thermal dome, and also the Panama region, which are very seasonal, but highly important because whenever everything warms up in the region, these trees start pumping and start giving fresh water to the region. Also, they start nourishing the water in this region, right? This is for mostly December to May, so hence why you don't see Galapagos doing what it does best in the Cromwell region, or also Humboldt, but they are there as well. They're being selected. So, and apart from that as well, we are doing all sort of analysis that we are carrying out right now. The problem is that we need a lot of computing power to actually produce these maps. And what we are doing is to identify areas that they have changed through time, like to identify specific areas they have changed through time in terms of, I don't know, this is sea surface temperature. And at least in Galapagos and Peru, it has been published that these areas are cooling down, regardless of the whole global warming that we're experiencing, right? But we didn't have specific boundaries for this region, for these regions, right? So we create analysis for every single pixel. We extracted the time series data. This is from 1982 all the way to 2020, and running trend analysis to every single pixel. It's a lot of time we do it in the ETP, right? But at least with this one, we took up 1 month of computing in one computer. So it took a lot of time. But also, not only cooling, but we can detect areas that are actually warming more than the rest of the region. And we are using these areas as well as a proxy for this analysis because they are climate risk areas, right? We hope that by July that we are in Canada working with at Dalhousie, we'll have a HPC so we can run the analysis of all the variables that you saw in the previous slide, actually, and done it for the whole ETP. And that will give us this sense of what is going on with dissolved oxygen, with pH, with nitrates, silicates, phosphates, and everything. If there's any specific area that is changing the most to the positive or to the negative side, right? And whenever we don't have enough information for choosing or selecting a pattern, what we are doing is simple statistics and finding the quartiles. How do you pronounce that? Quartiles? Quartiles, right? Yeah, using the quartiles to select the areas that could be either in the one positive or the other, well, either in the lower bound or the higher bound that may have sense for the pelagic species, right? If there's areas of salinity, for example, high salinity, would that make sense for pelagic species more than having areas of low salinity, right? So by doing that, we are selecting these polygons or creating these polygons, right? That in oceanographic processes, as well as with the species and the other variables that we are assessing, we have a scoring process as well to try to select this analysis. This is an early stage, mind you, so some of those, of course, are going to have 1, 1, 1, 1 because we haven't had the time right now to sit down with oceanographers and start assessing this data and start working with them to create this tailored scoring system for these layers. Physical habitats as well, we are using everything that is available in the net. For example, coral reef ecosystems, they may not be, they may be coastal, right? But they do have some importance for some migratory species as a cleaning areas, right? Or in some areas as well as a nursery or spawning regions. So we are using these layers as well and score these layers as well. It is, at the moment, it's preliminary. And we are also identifying life stages. There's a work done by Sophia Green, who is published in an ArcMap study, which is ARC study, I think is the name, which is really nice. And she has worked with interviewing all of the scientists that we could imagine in the region to identify nursery grounds, spawning grounds, aggregation sites, and so on in the ATP. And we are using that as a foundation as well for identifying critical life stages for many of our migratory species. But there also we are using information on our own research, right? To assess the data that we have collected through time, satellite telemetry, and identify the migratory routes, because we want to use as well as a critical layer the connectivity, right? The connectivity path of these species. So this is Mobula virostis in coastal Ecuador, and by doing our analysis, we can identify what areas are they choosing to migrate or move between. And it's really cool because this has helped us in the last few months to identify some areas that right now the country has decided to somehow protect, and we are on that process. But I'm not allowed to talk about that because it's still, that would be spoilers, right? And yeah, so all the information that we have, use all of these layers as well, use them, score them, and process them. So the idea at the end of the day, as any other process, just an algebra of mapas. So use all the raster layers that we have created and add them up, stack them up and add them up so we can create a final raster with all of the information, and this with also the normalized values from 0 to 1 or 0 to 100%, right, to make it easier to understand. So what we have so far, just to tell you about the process that we have done, this is tropical Pacific. This is preliminary results. This is biodiversity's distribution, right? But you can see that this is heavily biased to the coastal areas. You see Ecuador, you cannot see at all Revilla, Clipperton, nothing. Because this is just using value of 1 and just adding them like if they have the same importance, right? Once we tailor, we start scoring all of them, focusing on these in the high seas, we can see that we started to depict areas that haven't been done before, right? Because we are pushing our analysis as I said, toward the species from the open seas. And this is an ongoing process. We have to still review, analyze, process this data to see if we can improve the scoring approach and we can depict even more patterns in the high seas. As I said, this is for biodiversity. Then we have oceanographic processes. What are the areas that actually mean the most in the high seas? And you can see here, there's a really nice depiction of the equatorial area, of the oceanic front that is there, and also the Welling region that happens here overall in the colder months for my region that are from June all the way to November, right? But you do have as well the Welling process here in CF Cortez. You have as well, you should see a Humboldt current here happening, but it is cut. The line is all the way to 7 degrees south latitude, right? And you can see Galapagos around here and the Costa Rica thermal dome, the Tehuantepec productivity, Welling region, and also Panama region, right? And we have as well, this is physical habitats. We are trying right now to improve this one by adding other layers that may be more important as well. We have a set of, ridges we have included here, but there's also probably, for example, the mountain ranges, like not only the shallower part of those, but the basin of those, because for some species, the geomagnetic configuration serve as a highway, according to Pete Klimley and his theory from the 80s, right? So we're trying to use a geomagnetic layer as well here to see if we can depict those routes and use them as a proxy as well. And finally, the live stages, adding them up completely, which looks more interesting, but also a little bit biased toward this region. And I don't know if that is a problem because we have more science done here in this area or not, but we have as well to check that out. Again, as I said, we are using only scoring of one to these layers, so it's not that we are kind of depicting stuff that is relevant to the high seas. We're just putting everything together. But if we add up everything, put all the layers in the blender and see what comes out, we kind of are having a better representation of the high seas. And again, this is a prioritization analysis, which means that we are trying to prioritize the high seas, right? This is preliminary, as I said, right? But you can see how Clipperton, which is right here, it's more depicted actually as an important area and sort of a region of, there's sort of a connectivity pushing towards Clipperton all the way from Revilla. We are about to be here in Clarion. This is Socorro, and you can see as well how there's a connectivity-ish region pushing from the Sea of Cortez to this region, and well, you can see that what's going on in the south. So at the end of the day, we hope that we can get all of this information processed in a very fancy and nice way, and we can have out of these contour layers that will try to depict those areas of more importance, all right? We have a scale of 0 to 1, try to get 50% plus to see, okay, if those areas are important for high seas, will those show some really interesting patterns that may need to be improved management, to be better managed? So that's one aspect. And I know this is long, but there's another aspect about KBAs that we also was talking about that we are also using. This is another tool. KBAs, we're feeding the KBAs analysis using our satellite telemetry data. There's a package called Track2KBA that the ICUN developed and approved for choosing or selecting areas that could be pre-KBAs, right? And the idea is that there's 3 steps then, which first it creates a density analysis for every single track and then layer them up, try to see which one is more representative for the species, and then after that select the region that will be of interest. And we are using that, for example, this is an example from Lepidochelys olivacea, Elka's work on the region, and you can see how for this species, the movement are quite big. They go all the way from South Mexico to Southern Ecuador, North Peru, and you can see that it is choosing these actually tiny regions like must be like pre-KBAs, like potential KBAs for the species. The idea with this analysis is to bring everything in the blender, as I really like, and put all the species that we have and try to show, okay, for this region, what are the areas that are more interesting for or it could be potential KBAs. And after that, choose or select. You can see here the Migravia well represented, and also there's a bias in this data set because we don't have access right now to all the data set that is available. We haven't used data from the northern part of the ETP, so don't get confused. It's not that there's no important areas here, but we haven't analyzed data from this region so far, right? So we have as well, you can see areas here in coastal Ecuador, as I was saying, with mantas, we actually managed to show and propose a new KBA that it's right now being under assessment by IUCN. We have also used that data for Galapagos and Hermandad, which has been approved. As Ecuadorian, I cannot propose a KBA of Costa Rica, but that's a process that has to be done by the government of Costa Rica. But at least we have improved the region of the information from Ecuador, and we hope by doing this analysis as well, provide that information for each country so they can actually, push the KBA's initiative in their own area, in their own regions, right? But the idea with that is, for being actually a KBA, there's a lot of things that have to happen. First, we have to see if that works. KBA is heavily biased towards coastal regions, right? And you can see only in this region here that there's a difference about how we are depicting the equatorial zone. This is a really important region, by the way, right? Like most of the tuna fishing happens in this region west to Galapagos, and there's also a very huge management area by the IETTC, which is called the Corralito, that they actually manage, and they have some seasonal closures for fishing tunas in this region west of Galapagos. So it is an important region. The IETTC recognizes it, but no other tool, like a normal tools, actually recognize that. So we hope that with this analysis merging this, we will show that as well, right? But as I said, to actually be a KBA, there's a catch because there's a lot of strict criteria that have to be met that were developed based on birds, and that's a very important criticism that we have about this tool so far. Like, you have to have at least 5 reproducing animals, for example, and yeah, we know that we have them. Or you have to have 10% of the whole population numbers that you have in the population, but we don't know how many hammerhead sharks are in the open seas. Like, heck, it's really hard to know actually, to measure in comparison to birds, for example, that you can stand out in a tower and start counting all the birds that pass by. They'll have a better estimate of numbers. We don't have that here in the marine realm. It's really difficult to actually fulfill that criteria, to meet that criteria. So that's probably part of the recommendations that we're going to have, for example, for this specific tool, to show that indeed there's no way how we could provide or identify KBAs if these criteria are solely based on species. If we do those in terms of oceanographic processes, for example, that would be different, because oceanographic processes are better way. There's, by remote sensing, we can actually identify them better and measure them through time and have some better estimates and quantify these items, right? So maybe that will be a way to go in this criteria. But yeah, next steps, there's a lot of things to do. As I said, this is preliminary. We're working we're working a lot right now with my team. Nicole and I, we are pushing this and at the moment try to see if we can improve this. We'll have some meetings. Probably I'll call you guys as well in a few weeks as well, just to see if we can get this improved. The idea is that, okay, we will incorporate other spatial analysis tools, assess all these potential sites if they actually make sense or not, validate those results, and if we have to go back to the Darwin table, we will go to improve the analysis and do this several times until we perfect the analysis that we have so far, and then try to also validate with other type of analysis as well in the region that are being carried out. And yes, of course, collaboration is key. We want to improve the collaboration, guys. So if you happen to have more data that we don't have and you want to participate in this, you will retain all your IP. We can sign documents about how to use the data, but it will be really good so we can improve this analysis. That it's going to provide, I think, a very, very nice foundation for what's coming next in high seas. Collaboration in other analysis, this is something that I wanted to show a little bit as well. How we can incorporate that to other analysis. We did a very nice analysis on assessing all the MPAs in the region in terms of the fishing effort. What drives fishing effort to those areas and to the border of those areas? What is the characteristic that each one of these have that actually is making fishing go in there? So if we kinda can depict that, then at the moment of setting our new MPAs or new management areas, we could probably show as well that there are certain conditions that have to be met so we can have a better productivity, or perhaps they incentivate fishermen to go to these areas. I don't know, it's just there's a lot of to talk about this. But in quick terms, in summary, what we did is just to have several type of management areas be tested, for example, and the drivers for most of these regions actually are using AIS data from Global Fishing Watch. Enforcement, whatever is not enforced or poorly enforced, it will drive more fishing towards there. Whatever, if the area is being implemented just in a few recent years, it will drive more fishing towards there. And the use, there's high impact use, no-take areas, so the areas that allow some fisheries going on also drive more fishing towards that. And these are kind of like the three main drivers in terms of Global Fishing Watch data. But as we have as well observer on-board observer data, we tested that as well, and we have that for the IATTC. Whatever drives them the most is the objective. If there is a conservation purpose of this area, will drive more fishing. The size, if there are mid-size areas like between, I can't recall exactly, probably 11,000 square kilometers all the way to 50,000 square kilometers, it's the one that drive more fishing towards there. And also the use. These are more in terms of they allow so more fishing going on, not fully on, but there's management in place in that region that allows fishing away from sustainability. Yeah. This example for Malpelo and Revillagigedo, mind you, this is 2016 for Malpelo as well, so it's not based on the latest expansion because Malpelo suffered several expansions in the last decade. So you can see that sometimes observer data, AIS data, cannot depict what is going on over there at the border or within the area. It's not consistent through MPAs, and you can see that as well. Some MPAs are more prized by fishing than other MPAs, right? So Revilla sort of, let's go, reduce their fishing around here, within the area, but it's, as I said, it's inconclusive, the information that we have, because I don't know why onboard observer data has no observer data before 2016. So, yeah. So I wanted to show you that as well to fuel a little bit more the conversation about what we could measure in our MPAs to assess those in terms of sharks. Sharks and rays. Yeah. And that's it. My talk. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you.